What if I told you that the real reason your last project went sideways had nothing to do with the thing that went wrong? The problem you're trying to fix right now might not actually be the problem at all. What's up, everybody? My name is Aaron. I'm the Vice President of Operations for a New York City live events creative production agency named one of Inc. magazine's best places to work. I've spent the last 2 decades of my career working with technical and creative teams to build better processes and workflows. And today we're talking about something that changed the way I think about every single problem that comes up in my professional life: root cause analysis, specifically a tool called the 5 Whys. Here's the thing, most of us in creative fields are in reaction mode all the time. Our timelines are just moving too fast to do anything else. Problem comes up, we fix it immediately. Client changes their mind, we're working that weekend. We never actually have the chance to ask why something happened in the first place. So the problem comes up again and again and again. By the end of this video, you'll know what root cause analysis is, why the 5 Whys is the most versatile version of it, and how you can start using it with your teams this week. Now stick around, the examples I have for you are wild. Okay, let's start simple. Root cause analysis is exactly what it sounds like. It's finding the origin of a problem, not just the most immediate or visible cause of the problem. When we're looking for solutions, we want to make sure we're treating the illness, not just the symptom. Think of it like this. You pull a plate out of a dishwasher and you see it's not clean. So you throw it back in, you run it again, and it comes out still not clean. The symptom is that the plate isn't clean. The first order cause, or most immediate cause, is that the dishwasher didn't get the plate clean. But the root cause is that you didn't rinse the plate before it went into the dishwasher in the first place. The 5 Whys, developed by Seikichi Toyota, yes, of the car company, is a method of drilling down from a surface level problem to its root cause by asking why, iteratively. The premise is dead simple. You observe a problem, and then you ask why that happened, and then you ask why that happened, and then you ask why that happened, and so on and so forth until you reach a point where you can't go any further. And then you work to solve that problem. The idea is that if you solve that problem, then none of the other problems could have come up, thereby preventing problems from arising at the place of work. Now, I could just walk you through a dry flowchart, but there are some fascinating real-world examples of how this can work. Root cause thinking shows up in some of the most unexpected places. Okay, let's start with my favorite example. 1995, wolves are reintroduced into Yellowstone National Park after an absence of 70 years because the elk population there, not having any natural predators, starts overgrazing huge amounts of land, and their return changed the literal landscape of Yellowstone. Here's the chain. The wolves came back and started hunting the elk. The elk, now having something to fear, stopped grazing in the open valleys and riverbanks because that's where the wolves could catch them. With less elk grazing, vegetation like trees and bushes came back. With trees and bushes, twigs, small trees, etc. coming back, beavers came back and started building dams that created new ponds and waterways. Bugs multiplied. With all of the new vegetation plus that new food source, songbirds came back. All of these environmental improvements allowed the trees to strengthen their roots along the riverbanks, stabilizing the soil there. The edges of the riverbeds stopped eroding as quickly, causing sediment to be deposited in new places, changing the actual course of those rivers. This is called trophic cascade. It's what happens when one change at the top of a food chain ripples all the way down and across it. First, the wolves changed the behavior of the elk. Then, they changed the behavior of the rivers. So why did the rivers change? Because the banks stabilized. Why? Because the trees came back with stronger roots. Why? Because the vegetation came back. Why? Because the elk stopped grazing there. Why? Because of predator pressure. Why? Wolves. That's root cause thinking. And when you're leading a creative team, the wolves might be a bad process or a communication issue, the wrong software in the pipeline. Who knows? But if you trace the chaos back far enough, you're likely to find there's one single cause. All right, next example, and this one is a classic in lean and process improvement circles. The problem? The Jefferson Memorial is deteriorating faster than any other monument in Washington, D.C. Lots of money and lots of experts attribute this to the frequency that it's being cleaned with harsh chemicals. Okay, easy enough, right? Just clean it less. Well, thankfully, they kept asking why. Why is it deteriorating? Because they're using harsh chemicals to clean it constantly. Why? Because of the extraordinary amount of bird droppings that are there every day. Why so many birds? Because there's a massive population of spiders that live on the monument, and spiders are food. Why so many spiders? Because there are massive swarms of insects that come out every evening. Why? Because of the monument's lights coming on right at dusk, right when midges, a very small fly that live in the Potomac River, are coming out to swarm lights. The solution? Turn on the lights 30 minutes later. That's it. 90% fewer insects, way fewer spiders, fewer birds, fewer cleanings with harsh chemicals, less deterioration. A multi-million-dollar erosion problem solved with the adjustment of a light timer. This is why fixing those first-order problems may work this time in this situation, but it doesn't really prevent the problems from coming up again and again. If they had just switched cleaning chemicals, the monument would still be crumbling. Okay, last example, and this one's just for fun. This one has a little bit of Reddit and internet general infamy, so you may have come across this one before. Gerard Way, the lead singer of My Chemical Romance, witnessed the September 11th attacks in New York City. That trauma directly inspires him to start the band, choosing art over a more mundane career path that he was on. MCR becomes massive. Their music inspires a generation of emotional and passionate fans. One of those fans is Stephanie Meyer, who gets inspired to write the Twilight series. Twilight inspires a lot of, well, erotic fan fiction of the characters. The most famous of those gets picked up, the characters' names get changed, and E.L. James' 50 Shades of Grey series becomes massive in its own right, and picked up and made into movies starring Dakota Johnson. Dakota Johnson would go on to Ellen DeGeneres' show and have a famously awkward interview where she calls Ellen out over an invitation to her birthday party. That clip goes viral and becomes the start of a broader cultural movement that contributes to the end of Ellen's daytime reign. Now, is this a perfect root cause chain? No, not even close. In fact, in real analysis, you have to make sure you're not straying into some of these more indirect causes, but I think it does a good job of highlighting just how far back from the problems some of these root causes can go. Some of the things you're staring at today and working on might be caused by decisions that were made months or even years ago. Alright, so how do you actually use this? The original Toyota model was really straightforward. After something goes wrong, a delay, a defect, a miss, you get together everybody involved and you walk through the chain of events. Not to find fault per se, but to find where the system failed. Here's the key distinction I want you to remember. Bad root cause analysis looks for who. Good root cause analysis looks for what. The goal is never finding out who was at fault. The goal is finding out what in our process allowed this to happen. And finally, a few practical tips for running 5 Whys sessions with creatives. First, do it in the debrief, not in the moment. Mid-crisis, the fix needs to happen now, so treat that symptom, get through it, and then come back to it later. Second, keep it collaborative and blameless. Like any good relationship, this isn't me versus you, it's us versus the problem. Third, don't get hung up on the 5 part. Sometimes it's 3 steps, sometimes it's 7. The number isn't the point. The point is to make sure you're going deep enough so that the solution you introduce actually prevents the problem from happening again. And finally, write it down. Share it with everyone and make sure it sticks. The value of 5 Whys is only as good as the process change it creates. If you talk about it and then just walk away, you've done the analysis, but you've skipped the improvement part. Okay, let's bring it all together. Root cause analysis is the practice of not accepting the first answer, and the 5 Whys is the most versatile version of this. It costs nothing, it takes less than 20 minutes, and it can permanently eliminate recurring problems in your workflows. The rivers in Yellowstone changed course because of an unrelated decision. The Jefferson Memorial stopped crumbling because somebody thought to ask why a few more times than anyone else thought was necessary. Your creative department can work the same way if you can slow down and ask the uncomfortable questions, and then ask them again and again and again. As creative leaders, we can't just fight fires. We have to learn to prevent them. There's definitely a Smokey the Bear joke in there somewhere, but only you can prevent forest fires. Here we go. We now understand that the rivers in Yellowstone changed course because of an unrelated decision. The Jefferson Memorial stopped crumbling because somebody thought to ask why a few more times than anyone else thought was necessary. Your creative department can work the same way, but only if you're willing to slow down and ask the uncomfortable questions, and then ask them again and again and again. As creative leaders, we can't just fight the fires. We have to learn to prevent the fires from happening in the first place. There is definitely a Smokey the Bear joke in there somewhere that I'm not gonna. All right, everybody, thank you so much for your time. If this was helpful, please like and subscribe. It really does help others in our industry find this content. Drop me a comment below and let me know what change to your workflows has had the biggest impact on your team. Let's keep the conversation going. I'll see you on the next one.